In this video, what obligations do you have as a landlord when you rent out your property? What do you need to provide the tenant? They're actually two different things. So I'm just going to quickly go through a checklist. I know that most of you will obviously know all of these, but some of you may not, and even missing one of these could potentially cause you problems in the future. First one, is your property Legionnaire's disease free? You are able to conduct an assessment by yourself so far, but realistically, if you're having any form of test, if you're having an EPC certificate done or something, it is worth having an independent check conducted and signed off, because that then ensures that it not only that it has been done properly, but it also absolves you of any liability for something that you may have missed. Obviously, do you have a valid EPC, Energy Performance Certificate? I'm sure you're all aware of that. You are no longer allowed to rent out a property that is below a rating of an E. I know there are many properties out there that are rented with a rating below an E, but bear in mind, local authorities are beginning to fine people. Do you have a valid gas safety certificate? Again, another one that I'm sure you're all aware of. Very serious consequences if your gas safety certificate has expired. I'm aware that some of you may occasionally have problems where the tenant denies access to your property for you to conduct a gas safety certificate. So never leave it until it expires. Always do it sometime before, so that you have time to issue notice and enter the property, whether they give permission or not, because this has to be done. But if they're preventing you, then don't leave it, but get some advice on what your local authority would be happy with for you to do, because that could be another way that a tenant could be setting you up to get into trouble. Have you supplied working smoke and carbon monoxide alarms? And they actually need to be tested on the day you hand over the keys. If you provide furniture, is it fire resistant? Okay, furniture that's not fire resistant would date back quite a long time, but it can be quite easy to miss something that maybe you buy from online or second hand, or whatever the case may be. Don't take anything for granted. Ensure that it does comply, because it makes you liable if it is not. Are all electrical and plug sockets safe and compliant? Don't forget an electrical installation condition report, EICR, before you rent out a property. Is the tenant permitted to rent in this country? You, once again, are liable should you rent to somebody who's not permitted to rent in this country. So please make any necessary checks, and if in doubt, get advice. Don't take anything for granted. Have you provided the tenant with a how to rent guide? You can download that and you can simply email it to them. It's quite a few pages to print out, but this is one of the documents, I'll go through a checklist at the end, that you must provide before they move in. Have you protected the tenant's deposit and provided the prescribed information? Once again, before they move in, you need to give the tenant details of where their deposit will be bonded and what the process is for them to recover their deposit, and you must bond their deposit within 30 days. One that many landlords miss: have you registered with the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO? Under the Data Protection Act, individuals and organisations who process personal information need to register with the ICO. Just the fact that you have the tenant's details, bank details, references, bits and pieces, means that you are obliged to register with the ICO, or you could be fined. And lastly, again, one that you probably will know: do you need an HMO or a selective licence? Once again, monitor that, because the areas that local authorities are covering to need HMO licence are changing all the time. So don't assume that because a license wasn't required last year, that it may not be required this year because things may have changed. So lastly, your checklist, what you need to provide the tenants with before they move in. Gas safety certificate, EPC, EICR, electrical installation condition report, how to rent guide, details of deposit protection, an inventory and your contact details. You also need to always inform the tenant using section 48 if you need to update your address. If you do not update your address, then you could do so or neglect to do so at your peril, because if anybody decides to send you any official paperwork from a court and make a claim against you, they can then send it to your last known address, and you might not even know about it, and judgment could be made against you, and you could even miss the period that you have to appeal, and you are stuck with a judgment that you could have otherwise contested. I hope this will be of great help to you, and I'll see you in the next video.